Hello, welcome to Artificially Intelligent, a podcast slash vodcast where a white cracker-ass hunky American comedian, me, Nathan Timmel, speaks with his bestest African-American person of color musician friend. That's you, Barrett Antar Goodwin.
Indeed it is.
And we have everyone's favorite atheist with us today, Andrew Hall.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yes.
And today being Wednesday, March 30th, I thought we'd do something a little different. Barrett, I know this might make you uncomfortable because we've never done it before, but maybe we could talk about race. What a first that would be for us in this podcast, right?
Sure. Let's do it.
Well, I mean, everybody heard the slap around. Everybody heard the slap heard around the world. Will Smith smacking Chris Rock, and everybody has their opinion on it. As a comedian, I have a comedian point of view, which we can talk about. I posted on Facebook. People seem to really respond to that post. But I saw Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wrote a piece. Did you happen to see it?
I did not.
I did not.
It was interesting because. So this is I guess this is where I'll ask you. I looked at it, I said, wow, Will Smith, what an asshole. And I looked at it from a comedian's perspective. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar said, this is horrible. It reinforces the stereotype black men cannot control their emotions. And I didn't get that at all. I just went, wow, Will Smith's a dick. So I guess my question is that something you felt like, oh boy, here he is making black people look bad? Because I don't know, through the eyes of a black person, did you look at it differently? I just looked at it as two guys having a moment. One of them's a dick and the other, just got smacked. But I'm assuming racists would look at it like, look at them, men of color politely can't, and that's what Kareem called out, saying that this is a stereotype black men have fought their entire lives. And it didn't even cross my mind. Did it cross your mind? Or, I mean, apparently not, because you would have had an answer already, like yes or no.
No, I mean, it's a complicated answer. Not complicated, sure. But it's nuanced. Every generation has a different view of those things, right? As a young person, I remember once saying to my mother...
As a millennial, because that's what we all are here.
Exactly.
We're young and hip in this Zoom group.
I'm not a young person, but I play one on TV. That's very true, oddly. That's funny. So I feel like when I was a kid, I remember driving somewhere and I saw a bunch of young brothers sitting around doing their thing, right? And they were just hanging out, what we would call loitering as adults, but as kids, we just call it hanging out. Yeah. And I said to my mother, it's those kinds of black people that make us look bad, right? Something to that effect. And she almost smacked the taste out of my mouth.
I was going to say, back her hand.
Like, she didn't actually hit me, but she pulled the car over and really laid into me about that's not a thing. You know what I mean? Like, no, basically, in no uncertain terms. But I can say that for a good chunk of my life, if I did something silly, I understood that in the eyes of, at least my understanding is that in the eyes of white people, I represent all black people.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the kind of way that racism was in my area. It wasn't like people ran around calling us the N-word. Right. But it was more like.
Nice.
Right. Exactly.
Black people are certainly nice.
But it was more about I represent something, so I have to be a certain way. And that was a kind of a burden and a privilege, theoretically, to walk around and do this. Kareem Abdul comes from a generation that is definitely like that. I would imagine, though, people who are younger in their 20s, black people in their 20s may not feel that way. So when I watch Will Smith do that, of course, I understand, these are largely white spaces, right, in this thing, and he's in there, and so I understand there's a certain kind of pressure there. Then I understand all these things. I understand his wife put their dirty laundry all out on the streets, right? So she completely emasculated him, and then there's another dude sitting up there who's gonna emasculate him even farther by making fun of his wife. And even though like he thought it was funny when his wife got offended, he's like, oh, this is like now I'm being offended again on national television by all these people, right? And there was the Chris Rock Jada Pinkett thing from the previous Oscars when Will didn't get in like 2015 or 16 or whatever, he didn't get nominated for something, and she thought he should have, so she boycotted the Oscars. And Chris Rock said, "Well, you weren't invited."
Oh, yeah.
That's like me being boycotted from Rihanna's panties or something.
Yeah, I wasn't invited.
Right.
Let me interrupt you quick. You
Yes,
said
please.
something. You said it was a white dominated, or it was a white space, and he had that.
Yes.
Is it really though? Isn't it? And is the Oscars, isn't that more a wealth privilege gap where everybody in that room has
Right.
superseded race because they're all fucking, I
I
mean,
mean,
getting handed trophies for acting. There,
yes.
he was comforted by Bradley Cooper and Denzel Washington. Like, this is
Right.
the
I mean,
elite.
right. I mean, and there's something to be said for this not being that this is ultimately never about race and it's always about class. But in this country, we've color coded every people. You know what I mean? So even though it's about class, it's still like people are still color coded somehow in this country. So I would argue, not argue, I would say it's probably a little bit about both. That being said, I I don't know that that had much to do with what Will Smith did, right? I can only talk about it from my perspective. I often am like one of zero black people or one of one black people in a room at shows and stuff, right? And so like I understand that feeling of like it's nothing, it's not bad. It's just an awareness of kind of solitude. In that room, he didn't have that. There's tons of people of color there. I heard that like that was produced by like he did it wasn't that in a sense. I don't know that that would have translated to him only because of the frequency of which it wasn't like that, but I can't speak to that. Do you know what I mean? Like I really can't. I just know that like when I'm overseas and I walk into a room and I'm the only black person there, the feeling I have is totally different. Like there's a huge weight that comes off of me that I don't even know I'm carrying until I go someplace where it's not present. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just a different relationship to color. And so I can't speak to what he did, but yeah, I'll stop talking.
All right.
So,
Well, Andrew, your experiences as a black man, how do you feel about it
yes.
all?
Well, I don't know if I could say anything about that, but I would hazard a guess that if there was an usher who felt insulted by Chris Rock's joke, and if that usher was black and went up and slapped him, he would have gotten his ass dragged out pretty fast. And you
Right.
talk about class, then it was because Will Smith is Will Smith, and that's why they didn't
Right.
drag him off.
I mean,
Yeah.
this there was a handful of black women who were saying that. They said like there's a bunch of people like hashtag protect black women saying things like, yeah, that's how you protect a woman and all this other stuff. And then there's a whole group of other black women who are like, nigga, what? Are you crazy? Like Will Smith is rich and famous. Like if you he goes, there's plenty of brothers in jail because they couldn't actually control their emotions. And she said that as a black woman or as any woman who has protection, if you have protection from your man, then you also have to stop him from being put in positions where he has to potentially go to jail or lose his life over something that is really just a joke.
I
Where
mean,
your
maybe I'm
feelings
I'm
are hurt.
seeing
You know what I mean?
the wrong things, but the majority of what I have seen have been women saying, I would have been embarrassed. I don't need a guy to step up and slap her. I have seen very
Right.
little of, yeah, that's how you protect your woman. I have seen mostly, I don't need protection from words. Like if someone says something
Right.
about me, I'm a proud woman. I can take it. I have strong
I
shoulders.
mean, but let's say you're walking with your wife, right? And somebody looks at her and goes, "Hey, I know he can't give it to you like I can, so why don't you come with me?" Right? And he's a dude and he's about like 6'2". Let's say he's whatever race is the most intimidating for you. and like, but she feels like, and she's offended. Are you actually gonna not say something? Are you actually not gonna confront the guy? You know
Well, I
what I mean?
mean, there's a difference between saying something and starting a physical altercation. I mean, and I might check with her, like, you want me to do anything? I don't know. I don't know. I mean, hypotheticals, it's impossible to play.
Right. But I mean, like that. This is the problem.
I
Like
hear you. Yeah.
I understand, but I also have talked to women who said, I mean, a man who doesn't stand up to a woman. What did she say? She said, if we had boners, that would be a boner shrinker. That's what were her exact words. And I get that. Like I get that they're like we can talk about. Of course, women don't need that, but I can't say that. I mean, if somebody made a joke like what Chris Rock made, I can't see myself actually doing what Will Smith did.
Yeah.
But
It was a nothing
you
joke.
know,
And I want to talk
it was
about
a
that too for a
throwaway
second.
joke.
When
It was a throwaway because he could have said a lot worse, and he looked like he was about to, and then he took the high road and didn't.
yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Well, the joke itself, there's a lot of discussion like, oh, he made fun of her medical condition. She has the thing I found interesting, I saw a couple people posting saying, I didn't even know she had alopecia. And in my brain, I'm thinking, right, these
Right.
celebrities are such narcissists that they think, I have a podcast, I talk about my condition, everybody knows. No, I don't fucking pay attention to your podcast. Yes, I heard about your condition because I'm aware, unfortunately, of, like, I saw a meme yesterday that I agreed with more than anything, which is everything I know about Machine Gun Kelly and Megan Fox, I learned against my will. That's how I feel about Jada Pinkett's life. Anything I know about her, I learned against my will. I don't care. So for the fact that anybody's saying like Chris Rock should have known better, no,
right.
it's not anyone's job to research every single member of their audience because as I've said myself a million times, everybody is offended by something. As a comedian, I stand on stage and I am neither looking to offend anyone. I'm kind of worried that I might, like, I don't step up and like, all right, everybody, I'm going to drop the M-bomb and look at that woman. She's a C, you know, like, I just tell jokes, but at some point someone might get offended, not because I was trying to, but because they took something the wrong way. And with this, the people that are defending Will Smith, I think, are like, well, he had to defend her honor. Okay, but I'm offended by your post. Do I get to hit you now? Well, you can try. Okay, now we're just, everything is devolved into violence. And it starts with something stupid like Will Smith losing his shit.
There's a difference between comedian, someone making a joke over someone who has an obvious, disability, someone who has
Look at
Down
you in that
syndrome.
wheelchair, right?
Right there, that's in a separate category from Jada Pinkett Smith, who like could have shaved her head for her own for aesthetic reasons, right? For her own reasons, as against to having some kind of disease. So those are in two different categories. And while if I had a son and someone who had Down syndrome and someone made a snide remark about it, I'd get hot.
Yeah.
I might pop, under the right circumstances. It's different. It's different that she had a shaved head or she was bald. You don't know.
I just had a memory. I used to have a horrible joke in my set. I will repeat it right here because so it can get taken out of context and everyone can say that I'm a horrible person. I used to have a joke that I'm trying to remember.
I just want to let you know, Nathan, because I run my own YouTube channel, see the cheap plug, I have a yellow card and a red card here.
Just like soccer?
Just like soccer, what I do to guests, to myself. Yellow card.
I think it was a celebrity that got busted, like Eddie Murphy or someone busted picking up a prostitute. And my joke was, I would never pay for sex. That doesn't make any sense. I can always go next door and trick the girl with Down syndrome into giving me a hand job for free. And it always got a big laugh. It always got a big laugh. And one day after a show, I believe I was in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, a couple approached me and they said, I really liked your set. I'm like, thank you. Like, except for that joke. We have a special needs daughter. And we had a talk. That was the last time I ever told that joke. It wasn't they approached me going, fuck you, you're a piece of shit. They didn't stand up. They didn't rush the stage and hit me. After the show, they said, "This is how your joke made me feel."
Yeah.
And I stopped telling it. And
That's
reflecting
good.
on it all these years later, I fully admit it was a joke in poor taste. But at the time I was younger and like, quote, edgy. And that is the response. Like, you can get heated in a moment, but say Will Smith had approached Chris after the show at an after party, like millionaire to millionaire, and said, "Jada has a condition. You know, you saw her roll your eyes at her joke." You know, it would have been, because everybody's saying they can't wait to see how Chris Rock responds on stage. And that's what Will did, is Will gave him the opportunity to blast. Like, if Will didn't like jokes being made, Twitter was on fire on Monday. There were so many, like the movie Hancock got changed to Hancock. I mean, my favorite one was that Drake meme where he's like, "Nah," and then "yes." And it was, you know, "Fuck my wife, make jokes about my wife." And it was just,
Right.
Those are great.
so,
I love
so
those.
if he thought that the hit, but anyway, my point is these people had an open. I'm still ashamed of that joke, and I remember I told it, and it always got a laugh. Audience was like, "Whoa, that's so edgy," and it was not right. It was a bad joke on my part, and I own up to it. And but yeah, that's how you approach someone when you don't like their material. You have a heart to heart with them.
Well, I think, and someone much smarter than me said this, is that, a good person feels badly after they do a bad thing. I just wonder how sincere Will Smith's apology is.
Oh, if it had happened during the speech when he was crying and talking about how he wants to get invited back to the Academy, "I'm so sorry. I hope you invite me back." Yeah. And "I'm sorry to Chris." That would have meant something more than a PR agent going, "Okay, you're getting blown up. Time to issue a statement."
Yeah.
I'm I'm sure it's genuine, but at the same time, I I he doesn't care what I think, but I loved Will Smith. I still will see his movies. I'm not going to boycott him. I still think he's a good actor, but I lost a ton of respect for him in that moment, and it's sad.
Yep. Well, I want to start the hashtag Free Will Smith.
You should make it Free Willie Smith, just to make it, or you got to get the meme of the orca jumping in there somehow.
Because I think if he was in a better place with his relationship, he wouldn't have done the things that he did.
I think Nikki Glazer had the tweet of the night where she wrote, "Open marriages seem healthy, don't they?" I mean, that was just.
I mean, I think the problem is that I think that Will Smith is actually just probably a nice person. Like, I think he's just a regular, reasonable guy who works his ass off and married a beautiful woman. But from what I see, I don't know that their relationship is healthy, but I don't know that it's unhealthy because of something he's doing. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but
Yeah,
like
we don't
my
know anything about their relationship. We can speculate, we can read gossip
right,
magazines, but we are not under their roof, in their bed, in their house every night.
right.
All
What
we
the
can do
thing
is
is that
pass
like
judgment.
what I've heard from people who seem to like know him or know about him, the people who talk about him publicly, nobody really ever says anything bad about the guy. And
Yeah.
I don't think it's because he's got a cleanup crew running around paying people off. Maybe he does, but you never really hear anything crazy about the guy, right? And most of what you see and hear is inspirational. Now, they say the same thing about, Oprah and what's her face, Ellen.
I
And
was going to say, I've never heard that
I've,
about Oprah and Ellen. I've heard a lot of
but
PR that says it, but
that's what I mean. Like, they're known for being this one way, but then you hear a consistent amount about them being this other way.
yeah. And
That
I've never heard that about Will either. I've
I've never
never heard
heard
a
that
bad
about
thing about
him
him.
at
I think
all.
maybe that's why I say I lost respect, because admittedly, I will admit I had him up on a pedestal. I really
Yeah.
did. And so this was like eye opening, and I should probably be more forgiving, because who the fuck am I to judge him? He had a bad moment. We aren't
You know,
defined by our worst
I
moments.
mean,
he had a bad moment, but he had time, and he still has time to make it
Yeah.
right. And he has
Yeah, I
chosen
have
not to do
40
so.
minutes to apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, and he
but I
hasn't done
mean, but he had a bad moment after his wife basically said he doesn't fuck me good, and I like on TV basically.
Yeah.
Like multiple occasions talks about how he doesn't do what she wants or satisfy her this or that, and publicly told the world that she had an affair with someone who's damn near one of her kids' friends. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, like, and told the whole world that, and then they stayed together, right?
Well,
Like
and the
that
thing was, it
can't
was rumored
be.
open relationship that but he never came out and said, "Oh yeah, well, I also fucked boom, boom, boom." Like he didn't come out and say, "Yeah, she's fine to fuck that guy because I got these hotties." He just,
Right.
if
And,
he
and
may have been
and
doing whatever, but
right. And do they really have an open relationship, an
I
open
don't
marriage?
know.
Like I hear the rumors that they do, but then the cheating wouldn't have been a big deal because it
Yeah.
wouldn't have been
Yeah.
cheating. It wouldn't have been cheating. It just would have been so like, this is one of my side guys. So like I can't imagine that they have an open marriage and also her sleeping with this guy repeatedly is a problem.
Yep.
Right? Like I'm not saying that they can't. Maybe they have real rules about the openness.
Well,
You know what I mean?
I'm
A
going
lot
to
of those
pause
rules
right
can,
here
yeah.
in case I need to edit
Mhm.
something out. Didn't you have a history, Barrett, where you were with a married woman who said, "I can sleep with you 3 times, and after that, we're done because I cannot get emotionally attached"?
That there was a moment in my life where there was, yes, a married woman, um, and she did say something like that. Yes. I can't imagine that Will Smith's. I can't imagine. See, I was a young single guy,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and so those were her rules, right?
Right.
Which she promptly broke, mind you, right? You know
I'm
what I mean?
surprised.
Once I was like, okay, cool, third time, I guess I won't be seeing you unless we're out for coffee. She's like, well, yeah, uh-huh. And then like 4 days later, the phone's ringing. You know what I mean? So like she broke her own rules relatively quickly, if memory serves. That was a good memory too. I'll have a double memory serving. Shit. But um,
But maybe the same thing would have happened because didn't isn't again,
right.
I don't know anything, but did Jada say something like that where it's different if it's physical versus emotional, and maybe she got a little too emotional with this guy?
I don't know, but here's the thing. For women that I have slept with, I have been the best some of them have ever had until that moment. Some of them probably the best they'll ever have. And for some women, they wouldn't go back for seconds if you paid them. Do you know what I
Mhm.
mean? Right? Like there's no consistency. Like the idea that every sexual partner is the same,
Yeah.
right? And that the things that you do that get this woman seeing stars and wanting to marry you, 3 minutes in, are the same exact thing that turn this woman off when you do them to her, right? And it's like, so for her to get on TV and say he's terrible in bed and all this other stuff, I can't imagine if somebody did that to me. Like if one of the women that I slept with and it just wasn't killing, right? If she got on public television and told everybody that, I don't know how I would respond to that because a
I would
lot of
respond.
masculinity is tied up into
Yeah.
sexual prowess. Do you know what I mean?
All
And
I'm
then,
thinking about are the women I've disappointed. I mean, I know I've pleased a few, but as you're saying it, all I'm thinking about are the ones I have disappointed.
right, and if they all got up and started a fucking podcast where they all talked about how your dick wasn't fun, and then somebody went on TV and made fun of your wife in front of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I can't say that I wouldn't get up and punch that motherfucker right in his mouth. Just because it'd be like, how much can you, like, I know we talk about the fragility of women and blah, 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 but masculinity is pretty fucking fragile, particularly around sex. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Like, and so I can't imagine what that would be like. I would be like, I don't even know what I would do. Like, I would have to go out and like fuck all the women who I used to fuck amazingly and hope I was still the one for them, and then left them like, well, a puddly mess on the bed, and then feel good about myself, and then film it and put it on
Ask
TV. Like, I
ask
don't
them
know
to
what
get on
the
and
fuck.
leave Google reviews.
Right, exactly. Like, give me a 5-star review on Amazon. Shit. Like, I'd have to like release porn or something. I don't know what I would do. You know
I
what I
know I
mean?
wouldn't still be married to the woman.
Right, that's the thing, right? Like I don't know that I could stay in a relationship. I don't know that my ego could handle that. And I don't know that that makes me weak or if that makes you smart to get out of that situation.
It boils
You
down to
know,
a lack
I
of.
think it depends on the situation. Again, we're not under their bed. We can only speak about how we individually would
right.
react.
But like what you would do if what is public knowledge about them, just the public stuff, was your life, would you have left her? Like,
I am such a weak person. I might have Kurt Cobained myself. I mean, Jesus Christ.
right, that'll teach her.
When we think
Well, it
about
might not teach her, but at least I won't have to read the headlines anymore.
it's for Will Smith, that instant with Chris Rock, I could see how he would be feeling that he'd been disrespected so many times in his life and by his, it isn't
Yeah.
like you can categorize, oh, this person did this to me and this person did that, and my wife is disrespecting me this way. It when you get to a point, it just becomes a big pile of disrespect.
Straw that broke the camel's back.
And
I mean, do you remember? I mean, back in the day, he's putting out "Off to the Principal's Office I Go" and stuff, and Jada was hanging out with Tupac. You know what I mean? Like Tupac was her friend, and Will was largely threatened by the relationship she had with Tupac. And I saw a meme that said, "That ain't shit. Tupac would have killed that nigga," like some shit like that. And it's like, right, like, what do you do if like one of your wife's best friends is an immortalized example of masculinity, like real, just raw, this idea, what we have, this idea of masculinity, and your husband is singing "Off to the Principal's Office I Go," you know what I mean? And shit like that. And then you're punking him on TV and he stays with you, right? Like, right, how much can one person take? Like, because this has been like his whole career. He's super successful and people all just make fun of him. Like, oh, Will Smith, like, and he's super successful, but he just gets made fun of
Does he really
for
get made
being
fun of all that though?
successful.
I mean, maybe,
I mean, I think he did. I don't know if he does
yeah.
well, the real
anymore,
question
but
is whether or not Will Smith thinks he's been made fun of. If
right,
he,
right. That's yes.
Yeah.
Which leads to I have this theory, and I would love to get your take on it, Andrew, because I think that Nathan already knows this. I think we might have talked about it, but I'd like to get both your takes on this, but particularly yours as an atheist. I get the distinct sense that all this shit is made up, right? Like everything is made up, right? Like when you go to another country and it's like, oh, your light switches are like this. You drive on this side of the road, your outlets, your electrical outlets look like this. Oh, it's kind of like ours, but it's different in these subtle ways. And then there's these massive differences, but the culture believes that their way is the right way, and we all believe ours is the right way, and you know but all this shit is made up. And when you say that if Will Smith believes he was made fun of, then he was made fun of, right? But how much of your belief and how much of what you believe is what really shapes the way you interpret the world? Do you know what I mean? I'm asking the question poorly, but hopefully you can
well, we can
decide.
we can open it up for conversation, right, and explore the
Yeah.
matter a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it definitely helps explain. It explains his behavior, because when we put on our amateur psychologist hat, it's like, well, what are the variables? What are the factors that might have led to this kind of course of action by Will Smith?
Yeah.
So when we talk about that, it's to describe the behavior, not to justify the behavior. So it's like, yeah, he felt this big pile of disrespect, and then, that moment just, the straw that broke the camel's back, and that's what propelled him into action. In terms of justifying the behavior, I think the golden rule is pretty universal. It wasn't something that Jesus first came up. Confucius came up with it. Buddha came up with it. A Jewish rabbi came up with it. It's a universal tool of morality. So
Mhm.
I think it's pretty clear. If Will Smith think he should be smacked if he says a joke and it came out the wrong way? I don't think he does. And by that basic rule, he's doing something wrong. I hope that made sense. I hope that made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think maybe expanding on what you just said about the pool of disrespect is, think about where he is. He's at the Oscars. He's the favorite to win an Oscar. He has worked his whole life and been incredibly successful, and yet people are still making jokes at his expense. So there are two ways of looking at it. That can be his way of looking at it, like, here I am, I have done all of this, and you're still busting on me and my family. Whereas the flip side is, all right, you are a privileged millionaire. You are in an auditorium with other privileged millionaires to hand one another awards. We're gonna let a little steam out of your. We're gonna take a little air out of your tires, because, I mean, look at the absurdity of it. What Barrett said. We've invented this reality where, oh, here's an award for you. Thank you. I'm a good person. You're a good person too. Now let's stand with Ukraine. I mean, that's nothing we've even mentioned yet. Is here we are, multimillionaires, handing one another's awards as a country's getting bombed and people are dying and losing their homes. Not that they should cancel the awards, that would be absurd too, because there's something horrific happening nonstop. As we are making jokes right now, a child is being abused. Does that mean we should shut up and be like, oh, you can't podcast? There is always something horrible happening. The whole point is, they're just, his lens is, I have worked so hard and this guy just disrespected my family. And the flip side is, he did it in an environment where that should happen. He didn't. I think someone wrote on my wall, like, yeah, Chris Rock didn't follow Will out to his car. Hey, your bald ass wife, look at her. It happened in an appropriate situation.
Yeah, I thought what he said to Javier what's his
Bardem.
Bardem and Penelope Cruz, I thought what he said about them was actually a little bit more like, ooh.
I don't know what he said about them. I missed
He said something they were both up for like the same award, or I don't know, something. They were up for something that, like, if one of them won, the other would lose or something. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, something to that effect, right? Like if, and he was saying something like, oh, well, if he wins, he'll lose tonight or something like that when he goes home, whatever. And I was like, oh, that's an uncomfortable situation to bring up. If there is some kind of thing where they both have movies that are up for the same thing, right? That is an uncomfortable situation. I'm like, and he brought that up, and I was like, oh, that's in poor taste. But what he said about dude's bald wife when he didn't know, I was like, that's not in poor taste. What would have been in poor taste is when you said, keep my wife's name out your fucking mouth. I'd have said, keep other cats' dicks out your wife's fucking mouth.
That was another.
That would have been in poor taste. Is like to say some shit like that.
It would have brought the house down, though, or at least
right, because you could see he was about to say it. He was like, it was a G.I. Jane joke. And he was like, ooh, I could. Like, you could see him, like, you could see his morality. It's like, wait a minute, we're on a public forum. This is a guy I know, and he took a different road. But like, I feel like if that was D.L. Hughley, who would never host the Oscars for obvious reasons, but if that was him or Chappelle or somebody like that, they would have eviscerated him and his wife. You know what I mean? Like, right there. But I think Dave would have also punched him in the face back. Like, if Will Smith walked up and hit Dave, I think Dave would have hit him back, is what I also think. But,
tell me if I'm wrong on this, but I thought Chris Rock responded professionally. He made a joke about it, and he got the crowd to laugh. And then, once he realized that there was no way to engage with Will Smith in a reasonable way, he disengaged from Will Smith.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
No, he's earned nothing but praise throughout this for his demeanor.
Yeah. I know.
He was genuinely shell shocked. You can see it in his face. Like and he's like, all right, that just happened. He said something along those lines.
Smack the shit out of me.
Well, I mean, after that, first he said, Will Smith just smacked the shit out of me. Then keep your fucking. And then he said something. He said, like, he just transitioned. He went back to, like, okay. He took a second, like, you could tell he was shaken. Best document, like, he moved forward.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, because he's a pro. At the end of the day, he did what a pro should do in that case, and he didn't let his emotions and his ego get the best of him, which made him, because had he gone buck wild on both of them, he would have actually looked like the asshole, and Will Smith would have looked like he was justified in doing it because Chris Rock is an asshole, right? Even if one preceded the other, you know what I mean? So
Well, let's we've been hammering this one thing the entire time. Let's talk about Jim Carrey's response, which I thought was telling. He said that he called everyone in the theater a bunch of, was it sissies? Because they gave Will Smith a standing ovation and he for winning
right.
40 minutes later. And he's like, you just witnessed physical assault and you're still going to stand and applaud like nothing happened.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting too. The fact that, I mean, shit, I again, I can only speculate. I do not know how I would have reacted in that situation, but in my brain, knowing me and my entire life, I might have just been looked at everybody and gone, I'm just leaving. Like, I'm walking out of here. If you're all going to stand and applaud, I just don't want to be in this room.
I'm sure we've all seen that picture, and I'm going to bring up Nazis right now. It's been
I
at least
know.
40 minutes in, and I haven't brought up Nazis.
Yeah.
I'm going to bring up Nazis. There's this one picture of a Nazi rally from like 1935 or so, and everyone's doing the salute.
Be that
and there's
guy.
this one guy who's like, I am not impressed with any of this. Thank you very much. And so I'm not saying that most people are basic bitches. I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is that we all have a tendency to act in a basic bitch-like manner in the pocket when we have to make a decision and everyone's doing one thing. And I'm not justifying this behavior. I would want to be the guy who sits down with his arms crossed or leaving,
Yeah.
but most people just aren't.
Well, and that, I suppose, I said it's knowing me and my life and how I've responded to stimulus in the past. But we haven't talked about this. That is my comedian response because, I mean, I am biased. My heart immediately goes to Chris Rock's side. And the more I analyze it, it stays there. I would like to think that, okay, in the moment, wow, fuck Will Smith, step back. Oh, maybe, but as I've stepped back in a couple of days, I stick. And so I think that's why I would respond that way as a comedian, as a guy that stands on stage and tells jokes and doesn't want to get hit. Yeah, that I would have watched everybody just stand and applaud and gone, I want nothing of this.
Yeah.
I did tell a lie on Facebook on accident the other day. When I wrote my post saying that I've been threatened on stage twice, those were the two unprovoked times that so I've been threatened a third time, but I didn't count it because I didn't remember it. When I did, I'm like, it doesn't count because I kind of egged that guy on. I was in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and there was a guy that, again, was just drunk and mouthy all through the opening act, all through the middle act. And when I got on stage, I just sort of went at him, I'm like, what the fuck is I got into it with him.
Yeah.
And eventually, I started hammering him. He got so pissed that he came up to the stage, but I leaned into him. We got like nose to nose, and I was just egging him on and egging him on. And the audience was like a mix of uncomfortable and laughing. They're like, this is going to break out into a fight. And the only reason I was doing it is because I had a table of 8 professional wrestlers right in the front row. And I sort of looked at them and they're like, we got your back. And so I knew, like, they all said, if his foot had hit the stage, he was going down. That's the only time I've ever egged on a customer or like tried to get a response, because I knew I had 8 people that were big enough and strong enough to immediately take him out should he try and hit me. So I did. That one I didn't count on the I've felt threatened or I've been threatened on stage, because it was I did that one on purpose. They were waiting, like, you were waiting for us to punch him, weren't? I'm like, I kind of knew you would.
That's funny, man. Yeah, I don't think I've ever been threatened on stage. Can't say that I would like it.
No, it's an odd feeling though. The one time I mentioned 2 times. One time I was in South Dakota, and I think I did a joke about religion. I don't remember. I was so shell shocked, not in a oh my god way, but just in a what, huh? Like, I'm just so confused. Guy just stood up. I should come up there and punch you right in your fucking mouth, or right in your, maybe he didn't, right, either way. And then he and his wife got up and stormed out. And I was just sort of like, what just happened? And the audience was more like, than anything. Nobody was like, oh my God, violence. Everyone was just like, the fuck is wrong with that guy? But then the second time, I actually was afraid. It's the only time I've ever snuck out of the back of a club, because, and I had a buddy in the audience that night who backed me up on my story on my page, where 4 drunks, 2 couples, 2 men, 2 women, they're just being obnoxious the entire show. And when I hit the stage, unlike the time in Ohio I just described, I remember full well asking them, hey, what's going on over here? Why did you come out just to be annoying? And they said, one of our friends got shot today. We're trying to blow off steam. And everybody in the audience went, because it had made the news. There was a shooting at this 7-Eleven or something like that. And I said, wow, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear it. Does not give you the right to come out here and ruin everyone's night. And they lost their shit. I mean, one of the guys may have had to been restrained. And that's when the management got involved, is when they started getting physical. Let them be assholes the entire night, and then escorted them out. But I don't remember the situation other than I had a sense of palpable fear, to the point where what he was saying and the way he was acting and the way he was threatening me, I said, hey, can I sneak out the kitchen and get a ride back? And I wasn't doing any fucking Andy Kaufman, Tony Clifton shit where I was egging him on. It was completely unprovoked. They were just looking to unleash. And so my whole point was, Will Smith sets a precedent right now. If he goes unpunished, I'm not saying audiences will suddenly think it's okay to hit comedians, but the people that are on the edge that heckle and yell and get disruptive, that door has been opened.
Yeah.
And that is why I thought Chris Rock should press charges. I mean, he should come out and say, I am okay with Will Smith slapping me millionaire to millionaire, but there are comedians under me that no one has ever heard of that could suffer from this. I need to show Will Smith suffers consequences for his actions. He'll get a fine. He's not going to go to jail. You know, maybe he'll get community service. Will be fine, but he needs a consequence.
You know, this is how,
public.
one of the first things I thought is that this is how people get shot. You know, people keep, you know, I'm not saying Chris Rock's going to go out and pull a gat on him or anything like that, but, you know, people have entourages, people have fans, you know, we talked about we brought up Tupac earlier. It's like, once you have a certain barrier broken and people don't want to go to the police and want to take care of their own business, or people feel like they have to step up for that person and defend them, then things can easily spiral out of control. And maybe Chris Rock could have so there's a lot of danger there.
Well, the Beehive, Beyonce's fans, like if you say something bad about her on Twitter, they will eviscerate you and dox you and release your address and try and get you fired. I mean, the Swifties, there are people that do that shit.
I mean, it's interesting though, because like, to me, my response when I saw it, like, it's interesting as a comedian, you saw it one way. I was like, oh, this is like cancel culture run amok. Like, it's not even about the violence. It's about maybe it's the same thing from a different angle. It's like now when you get on stage, you have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Like, it's just something that's on your mind. It's like, now it's almost unavoidable. It's like terrorism, right? Like, you blow up one mall and nobody wants to go to any malls.
Yeah.
Right? One guy gets punched in the face because he told a joke about a dude's wife that the guy didn't like. Not even that the guy didn't like, that the wife didn't like. Because the guy actually thought it was funny until his wife told him that it wasn't funny. His wife went, "That's not funny." And he went, "Oh, okay, sorry, that's not funny. Oops." Right? And, but like, for you, next time you're on stage and you're heckling, dealing with that, you've got it in the back of your mind, oh, is some guy going to come up and punch me in the nose? Like, yeah, you might win, you might sue him, but you'll get your teeth knocked out. And that's an unfair burden to give somebody. Like what you're talking about, like all comedians now have this worry. You know what I mean? It's what you guys are talking about. Like, it's not just one guy. It's one thing that gives permission to a lot of people to just raise the bar just a little bit. It's like a gateway, right? And if now it's just this, and something else will happen, and it'll get a little bit higher, and something else will happen, and it just like, this is where you see the point of conservatives, right? They're like trying to stop the flow, but it's kind of the same thing, like trying to stop the flow before there are people who bring guns to shows and decide that because they don't like your joke, they can shoot you. You know what I mean? It seems like a crazy stretch, but, it's the line. You know what I mean? It's at the end of this line.
And I'm already in some ways there, not on stage, but in my life. I posted a stupid TikTok where I talk about a guy that was in line behind me at Costco gas and wanted me. So just anybody that didn't hear it, there are two spots. The guy in front of me finished a little after I did, and the guy behind me was like just fucking livid, asking me to go around him. And so I posted on TikTok, and people were like, well, why are you saying it on here? Why didn't you go confront that guy? And I'm like, that was a very small amount of comments, like maybe out of 1,000 comments, 3 or 4 people said that. But I'm like, and my response was, because I don't confront angry people. I saw him being angry in his car. My first response was not, let's get out of my car and explain to him. Because a lot of people, they didn't say confront. They said, why didn't you explain this to him in the moment instead of making a TikTok? I'm like, because I'm not going to go approach a guy screaming that I can see in my rearview mirror and go, hey, let me tell you how this works. First, if you are like, no, I don't know if he has a gun. I don't know if he sees me get out of the car. He's going to get out of his car. Like, bad idea all around. I already live my life not in fear, but in caution. Yeah. Now I have to bring that to and I already think I'm cautious on the stage, but now, like you said, it adds an element. It's an escalation.
Yeah, but to your point, like, you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to.
No,
you know what I mean? Like, you really don't. Like, you take a pass on one. You know what I mean? Stay in your fucking car where it's nice and warm. You listen to the tunes you like.
Yeah.
Like, fucking get out of your little slice of paradise for to go confront some knucklehead who might interpret your actions as hostile.
Yeah.
Right.
The stand your ground law. That's how it happens.
Right.
He was approaching my car, so I shot him.
Right, because he might not like Chris Rock thought Will Smith was coming up to be funny.
Yeah, his hands were down the entire time. Right. You didn't seem like, whoa, Will Smith. Like he
thought he was coming to be funny, and he was wrong. And it's like, you don't want to be that guy. Walk up to some guy thinking that whatever. Yeah, confront some lunatic who's going to yell and scream at you over something as stupid as what he was yelling and screaming at you for. Why on earth would you assume that person, again, maybe
is rational?
Unfair, but right, why would you assume that they're rational? And if they are, you would assume, you know what, this guy's having a day.
Yeah.
And he's clearly doesn't know how to keep his day from affecting me because he's already yelling and screaming and beeping. So I'm good. Right? Like, there's nothing about that situation that says you're going to meet a person who's going to treat you reasonably.
Yeah.
Nothing about that says that.
There's a lot of keyboard tough guys too. I'm not trying to
that is true.
Tough guys, and they're it's one thing typing it, and it's another thing in the pocket in the moment deciding to do the obviously wrong thing that can put your life in danger.
This is true.
Right. Yeah.
We've talked this subject to death, or do you have another thought? Because I was just saying we can either sign off or just quickly touch on anything else to close it out.
Hashtag free Will Smith.
I wonder if for the next 30 days, let's do another podcast with the three of us in the next 30 days. And let's try, when people confront us with anger, let's try to have a rational conversation.
Pass.
And see what happens.
Pass. I just am reminded of a story.
I just want to say, while you think about your story, I used to give de-escalation seminars, trainings to people because I used to work with people who have disabilities, and it could be kind of violent situations.
Absolutely.
And definitely talking and speaking reason to someone who's already hot does not help.
what is the method when somebody?
Well, I'm glad that you asked. If you're going to have a difficult conversation with someone, it's best to be seated first and foremost. Because have you ever noticed that therapy sessions aren't done while you're standing up? There's more than one reason for that. One of it is that you're less likely to activate the fight or flight response if you're seated down, if you sat down. So you can easily, when I feel hot, when I feel like my temperature is rising, I will time myself out in a conversation. It's like, you got to give me a couple of minutes. I can't talk to you right now. Let me come back in 5 or maybe 10 or later on this afternoon or whatever. And that helps. Or if you even feel like the other person is feeling like they're being irrational, it's like, I really want to talk to you about this, but can we do this in 5 minutes? Can we do this in 10 minutes? Just so that it brings them down, right?
My wife and I have a keyword, giraffe. If we're ever in an argument and it's going to get heated, either one of us at any time can just go giraffe, and then everything stops and we reevaluate and talk about it in 10 minutes or 20, like, but we have an outward so that we rarely fight, because if we are arguing and someone says giraffe, it ends it, and that immediately de-escalates it, because when we reapproach it later, that's a mouthful. We can say, okay, here's how I was feeling in this moment, here's what I was trying to get across. But yeah, it de-escalates immediately when we drop the word.
Do you ever confuse that with your safe word for BDSM?
No, same word.
That could just be so awful.
Same
Oh.
word. Makes it easy. The story I was going to tell is when I lived in Hollywood and worked on movie productions behind the scenes, I was what's called a site rep, and I would work for a building. Like instead of building on a soundstage, an office building, they would just film on a real location. And they were filming in a lobby of the 777 tower. I forget. I could look it up on a map, but I remember where it was. And so there were two entrances, one on the front of the building, one on the side. And because front was for business, they said film crew can only enter on the side. And it was the craft service guy who started just trying to jam his cart through the front doors. And he was having a problem and banging shit. And I'm like, dude, what the fuck? I went over like, hey, use the side doors. And I was a little harsh, probably. I'll take credit for that. But he blew up at me. So I blew up at him. And then someone came and separated us. And a little while later, I saw the producer, like one of the big dogs, talking with the guy, and the guy was screaming at him. That fucking guy was a fucking asshole, blah, 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 fuck him. And I went, interesting. So then the producer, I came over to me a half an hour later, he was like, hey, I wanted to talk about you, what happened earlier. And because I had seen the other guy yelling at him, I said, hey, you know what? It was a bad moment. Things got out of hand. He was supposed to go through this door. I saw him not going through that door. I tried to stop him. He yelled at me. I yelled back. And the producer immediately took my side, because I didn't do the same thing, which was fuck that guy. This is my building, fucking my door. I'm almost positive it's because I saw him screaming at the producer. I'm like, that's not how you go about this. And so, yeah, that was an interesting moment.
Do you think if you didn't see it, you might have responded in a similar fashion?
I don't think I would have screamed. I think I would have been like, oh, he's just an asshole. I might have been more dismissive. I don't think I would have. I'll fully admit I was being a little manipulative. Like I saw him screaming and I'm like, I'm going to come off as the sane one here. I think had I not seen that, I probably would have just been like, dude, I don't want to talk to you. Your guy's a dick. Like I might have been less open, but watching that really, and now I approach a lot of situations like that. But if there are two people in a situation, that's the two people. When someone else comes in to mediate, they don't need to hear you screaming at them about the other asshole. They want to hear something reasonable, and it really worked in my favor. And I've told you this story a million times, Barrett. We've talked about this. I'm going to say it so fast. Chef got fired at a restaurant I worked at, called a few weeks later and is screaming, fucking where's my last paycheck? And I had the active thought. I remember being on the phone going, oh, he's not yelling at me. He's yelling because he's mad at the boss because he doesn't have his last paycheck. So I just sat there going, yeah, I hear you, whatever. Fuck you, I want my fucking paycheck. Yep, I'm just the bartender. They're not here right now. Like I did not take it personally. That was another moment in my life where I fully remember, because I could have in that moment gone, fuck you, I'm just the bartender. What the fuck? Don't fucking yell at me. But I remember just like, not me. Yeah. He's having a moment.
Yeah. I mean, but do you think that I know we all talk about independence and blah, 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 right? Every man is an island, right? Isn't that how the saying goes? But maybe because seeing ourselves objectively is arguably the hardest thing that we do, right? And we are the first people to believe our own lies, right?
Yes.
But maybe we actually do need other people so that we can see these things acted out, and because it's part of what you did was manipulative, right? It's like insider trading. You saw something that you had privy to somebody else's thing and then use it to your advantage, right? But it also, once you got the haha out of it, it changed the way you respond in those situations, because you're like, oh, what that guy did is not effective. Just because in this particular case, it's going to benefit me doesn't change the fact that in the future, when you don't have that inside information, you're still like, but that doesn't actually work.
Yeah.
Right? And maybe we need other people. Like, we're always like clamoring for this separation, right? And independence, but maybe we really do need other people in our lives to mirror for us ourselves in a
Well,
situation. Maybe that's actually a human need, and we spend our whole lives trying to break that and prove we can do our own thing. But maybe it's not as true as we think.
I guess my first thought is Jada obviously needs other people in her lives.
Ha!
Boom.
Bam, just like that.
Here it is.
Other men in her life. All right, let's start wrapping this up. Andrew, promote yourself. You run the comedy side of a website called Only Sky Media. Talk about it, please.
Only Sky Media is a secular site, but even though it is for people who basically want to see a godless society, or at least a humanistic society, a society where people are just nice to each other, and we don't have to worry about religious fundamentalists doing horrible things to people. I write I write, and I also am the section editor for Only Joking. That's the comedy section, which you also partake in, Mr. Nathan Timmel. We
I
write
contribute to it. I offer pieces that you can publish at your leisure.
Exactly. So I also run a YouTube channel over on, obviously YouTube. Laughing in Disbelief is the name of the channel. I do a lot of stuff there. So, hey, head on over to Only Sky. We do smart things there and funny things.
Onlysky.com.
Yes, exactly. So check that out. It's a great site. We have a science section. We have current events. We do politics. And there we also do comedy.
There you
I
go.
think our section is the best section, but that's just me.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. That's that personal bias Barrett was just talking about, the belief, like my personal bias, where I say, I know there have been some women I've satisfied in the past and some I haven't.
Mhm.
It's all haven't, but I like to pretend there are some I've satisfied.
Yes.
Barrett, promote yourself. Katie Henry Band gearing up for a tour behind your hit album, On My Way.
Yeah, we're actually playing this weekend, April 1st and 2nd. April 1st will be at Bernie's in Chester, New Jersey. And then on Saturday, we'll be at Tellus 360 in Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
And you will be, you're getting booked on festivals. The album made it into the top 10 blues albums on the Billboard chart.
Yeah.
2 videos. I ask you this, and you say, yes, there is talk of a third. Has anything changed? Is there a decision for a third single and video, or is that still discussion?
Well, yeah, I think we're just working out the finances of it at the moment. Like, who's paying for it? Is the label paying for it? Are we paying for it? Are we splitting it? If so, how does that work?
Sure.
You
The
know,
first 2 singles are On My Way and Got Me Good.
yes,
All right.
absolutely.
Those are both available on YouTube as videos, but the entire album On My Way is on Spotify or anywhere else you listen to
Yeah,
albums.
absolutely. Yeah.
KatieHenryMusic.com. And if you're wondering why I'm pushing Katie Henry Music, it's because Barrett is the musical director of the band, and all things he can be found at antargoodwin.com. If you need a musical director or a bass player or someone like that, like, hey, I need a drummer and a bass player. Can you find a drummer? Anything you might need, all things music, antargoodwin.com.
Indeed. What about you, sir?
I am Nathan Timmel and can be found at nathantimmel.com. And this is, I think I've said this to you off air. I might have said it on once. They say you need to hear something 7 times before it sinks in. I am a very slow learner. For a year, Barrett would tell me, get a TikTok page. You need to open a TikTok account. And I'm like, that's for the kids. It's dumb. I'm old. I opened a TikTok account. I have gained more followers in 3 months than I have in 20 years on YouTube. Whenever YouTube, it's not been around 20. What I was on YouTube early on, and no one pays attention to me there. A video has hit 800,000 views, which is good for a nobody like me. It's nowhere near Taylor Swift levels, but people seem to enjoy
What's your handle, Nathan Timmel?
bullshit I put out. It's just my name. Just look Nathan Timmel up. And so I also have the book, We Are 100, which continues to do well. Got my first 3-star review. They did not write a review of what they thought was bad, but there's one one rating that says 3 stars. There are 65 ratings on Amazon. 63 are 5 stars. 1 is 4 star. And my first saw out of all of that, one person has found my book not bad. They didn't say 1 star, but people seem to like it. It's also We Are 100 is available on paperback, hardcover, Kindle, and audiobook. And that's all I'll say about that. So, Andrew, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah.
And
thank you for having me.
yeah,
Nathan
anyone
Tibbs.
watching or listening, thanks for watching or listening. And we will talk at you when we can, next week or in 2 weeks, whenever we get around to this.
Indeed.
Take
Bye.
care.